Hi everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. It's the first Wednesday of the month, and you know what that means. It's our next installment in our Life's a Beach Crochet series. And this month we are working on this really cool and pretty quick beach bandeau top. Now you can actually use this as a full-on tube top, but I'm choosing to use it as a bandeau, as you can see it modeled here by the beautiful Miss Jasmine. Now, you may be hearing a little pitter-patter at the moment, and that's rain on the windowsill. And that's because on the day that we were supposed to go to our next beach location, it was coming down in droves. So it was really quite disappointing. However, the good news is that the beach location we were going to was Crystal Beach, and I actually took some footage on another recent trip that I had been to recently. So the great thing is I had some footage in the bag, and I thought I would share that with you. Crystal Beach is another beautiful beach location, and if you are a resident of Ontario, you may be well aware of this beach. And if you're a resident across the border in Buffalo, you will be quite familiar with this location as well, as it was quite popular back in the day. Now, the Crystal Beach of today is quite different than the Crystal Beach of my childhood. This beach location sits on the northeastern shore of Lake Erie, right across from Buffalo. It's known for its crystal clear water. When it was founded, and hence the name Crystal Beach, it started off as a tiny village with a summer post office in 1898. That's the only thing they had there. It wasn't until 1908 when a year-round post office was opened. And from there, slowly the population grew. In 1928, it was finally incorporated, and it had a whopping population of just 298 residents. Now, I grew up knowing this as an amusement park location. The beach park occupied the waterfront, which made this community a very popular resort town, which is the way I grew up knowing this location. This is how I spent my early years thinking of this beach. And I grew up only living about 45-minute drive or so away from this location. And this is how I remember it, with the amusement rides and lots of activity going on. Now, if you're curious about the rich history of this park and the infamous dance hall it boasted, you should check out the documentary called Laugh in the Dark. And it's really goes into a little bit more extensive history on the location. Now, if you remember our February project, the Summer Vibes tank top, that was actually filmed in the neighboring beach of Bay Beach Park. And in fact, that's just next door. And it's here that a gentleman by the name of Johnny Rebstock opened a public beach where there was an amusement park with rides, a restaurant, a snack bar, and a dance hall. Now, when he died in 1941, his estate maintained the property until selling it to the town of Fort Erie in 2001. And sadly, that was the end of the Crystal Beach of my youth. A few failed attempts at condo projects took over, brought us to present day, where the town has now since renovated the site with some modern amenities for locals and beach visitors to enjoy. And it's still such a pretty location and a beautiful place to spend a summer weekend or even just a day trip. It's just gorgeous. Now, this is where I wanted to show off my beach bandeau, and thankfully, again, our beautiful model Jasmine here was able to step in and give you a taste of how it might look put together with an ensemble, in this case under a little jumper here. And so just to give you an idea of how you can wear your top. Now that we've had a little taste of our latest beach location, how about we get inside and start you on making your very own top. All right, so excited to jump back into using more of this Summer Nights yarn by Lion Brand. So loved working on this with our summer crochet top, and I have a bunch left over. So this is what we're going to use for our tube top bandeau top, crop top, however you want to call it. There is a lot of yardage in these skeins. So we have 875 yards. It is a 200-gram ball, and I still have tons of this left over because I bought a second ball for that crochet top just because I had used a bit of it for another project. So on and on goes the story of continuously buying yarn. But I love this texture. I love the color. I love that there's this little bit of sparkle running through it, and it's very nice and light for summer, so lots of cool projects. And it is made of 82% acrylic and 18% polyester, so perfect for summer attire. So for our top, we're going to need this yarn. It is a very fine yarn. It is considered a super fine 1. They're calling for using a 3.5 millimeter hook. I'm using my handy dandy 3.75 millimeter hook because it's just my favorite hook to use for these fine yarn projects. Also, it helps the stitches to sit just a little bit looser and relaxed. This is also known as a size 5 or an F. One more thing I forgot to mention that you're going to need for this project is some fabric elastic. So this is just something that you can put in garments to just give it a little bit more of an elasticity, or if you want the top edges of your project to sit snugly or cling a little bit to you. So in my case, because I'm doing the tube top, which will most likely not have straps, this is definitely what I need. Now you can pick this up at any craft store or you know, places like Walmart even in the sewing section. So there's different widths, and this is fairly narrow, and it's about, I would say, 1/4 of an inch thick. You could definitely use 1/2 inch. Again, these are things that are customizable to you and your likes. You will need to measure the circumference of your top and cut a piece that's just maybe 1/2 inch to an inch shorter than what you need, because you do want the stretch here to create the cleanness or the snugness to your body when you put your garment on. So very important to have this on hand. As always, make sure you have a pair of scissors handy and a darning needle for later on to sew in your ends. So let's begin. We're going to start with a slightly different method than our typical chain row. So I'm going to just show you what I mean by that. I'm just pulling out a bit of yarn here. To begin, you're going to start with a slip knot. And then we are going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you've chained 5, we are going to go back to the first chain, and we are going to do a triple crochet. And for those of you that are not too familiar with the triple crochet, I'm going to go through it slowly here, but I will also link a quick little tutorial on the triple crochet stitch so you can have a better understanding of how to do it. And I'll put that in the description box down below. But for now, to do a triple crochet, you want to yarn over 2 times. Okay? And then, finding that first chain, you're going to insert your hook right through there. And again, those first few chains, you don't want to chain too tightly. Okay? You'll yarn over and pull through, so you'll now have 4 loops on your hook. Okay? Then you'll yarn over and you'll pull through the first 2 loops only. This will leave you with 3 loops on your hook. You will then yarn over again, pull through the next 2 loops, which will leave you with 2 loops on your hook. Then you'll yarn over one more time and pull through the remaining 2 loops. So you're pulling through 2 loops 3 times, if that doesn't confuse you. So there you have a triple crochet sitting next to the 4 chains beside it. So remember, the 5th chain was used as our little anchor here. So what we're doing here is we're creating this little loop space right there. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to triple crochet back into this space. Now I like to flip mine so that my curve goes to the left, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go into the space and I'm going to then do my triple crochet. So pull through once, yarn over, pull through twice, yarn over, pull through 2 times. So the chain 4 is the height of a triple crochet, and then it creates these little loops, these interwoven loops, we'll call it. Okay, and then that's all we're going to do until we create the length we're looking for. So again, I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to flip my little rounded part. I'm going to yarn over twice and triple crochet into that loop space. Okay, so as you can see now, we're building length this way. So unlike using a typical, let's say 100 chains, for example, this is how we're going to create the length of our work. Now for me, what I am going to do is I have taken a measurement around my bust. So you should always measure the widest part of you. So for a woman, it's usually around her bust. And what you want to do is you want to take that measurement and then do the number of loops that you need to do in order to reach that length. So for me, I know that my length is 54 inches, or the measurement around is 54 inches. And because I've used this technique already in another garment project, I know for me that I need 54 of these loops. Okay, so make sure that you take the measurement around the core of whoever you're making it for, which for a lady would be around the bust area or the chest for a gentleman. And then you're just simply going to continue doing these loops until you get the length that you need. So go ahead and do that. You're always going to chain 4 and then triple crochet into the loop space. And once you've got the length that you need, I will meet back up with you and we're going to talk about how to continue building our top. Okay, so once you have the number of chains that you need, your work is going to look something like this. And so I actually gave myself a few extra chain loops. So initially I was going to have 54. I actually built this up to 60 because I am going to put a little bit of an elastic at the top. I wanted to do that so I have a little bit of give in the top. So I myself have 60 chain loops. And what we want to do now is we want to join these together so that will work in the round. So we want to really make sure that it is not twisted, and that we will be able to keep them nice and even. And this part may be a little challenging. You may have to stop and start a few times like I've done already. Once you get to the end and you know that you're not twisted, what you want to do is you want to slip stitch to join these 2 sides together. And it will be very trying sometimes to make sure that you are not twisted. So I kind of held on to this one to make sure this was my front along with this. So now you will have a circle to work with. Okay. So once you've slip stitched to join and you know that they are not twisted, you're going to chain 3. And now we're going to proceed to double crochet 3 times into this loop or this chain loop. So into that space, you'll insert, pull through 2 and pull through 2. So we're only using double crochets now. We're no longer going to use the triple. So I'm going to do a second one. And remember that the chain 3 always counts as 1, and that's why I have only done 3 in this first loop here. Okay, so you want it to kind of be able to fill that space a little wee bit. Okay, into the next space, we are going to go and do 4 double crochets. So you'll just insert, and there we have 2. And you just have to be a little bit of, have a little bit of patience here because the work is still not fully formed yet. It doesn't have a structure of its own yet. So you just have to kind of hold on to it. So I've done my 4 double crochets, and there's 3 plus the chain 3. So this is now what we're going to do for round 1. Our official round 1. So these loops were our foundation row. So what we're going to do is, to establish our round 1, you're simply going to do 4 double crochets into each chain loop space. So I would then go into the next space and do 4 double crochets. So for me, I have 60 loops times that by 4 stitches in each loop. That should give me 240 stitches. And remember that chain 3 counts as the first double crochet in there. So I'm just going to do this one more time. Into the very next loop, I'm going to do another 4 double crochets. So we have 1, 2, back into that space, 3, and 4. Okay, so now you can see it's got a little bit more substance to it. So 4 double crochets into each loop all the way around. Just coming up to my last loop here, and you definitely want to make sure that, or you definitely want to double check that your work is not twisted. So this is my 4th one and my last chain. So I'm just making sure that this indeed is the right spot. And then what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to join. Oops. So what we've done here is we've created our foundation row using these. So the loops were technically the foundation. This is row 1, which we're going to use as our base row. Okay, so right now your work will look something like this. It looks like a bunch of fan stitches or larger shell stitches in the chain loop spaces. So now we're going to go on to row 2, which is going to be the repeat for all the continuous rows. All the rows are going to be a repetition of row 2. So we're going to begin row 2 by chaining 1, and then we're going to go back into the base of that chain and do a double crochet stitch. Now a lot of times we would do a chain 3 to begin a new row, which I did in the previous. But when I'm doing things like garments, I like to try and snuggle in where the seam would be next to each other. So that way when we finish the row, it'll snuggle in a little bit closer there. So we've done a double crochet into the base there. What's going to happen next is we're going to do a front post double crochet. So what that means is you'll yarn over as usual, but instead of going into the stitch right there where you're going to get the 2 loops, you're going to go behind the post. So I'm going to go into that space and push the post forward. okay? And then I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and I'm going to resolve it like a regular double crochet. I'm going to pull through the first 2 loops, and then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the next 2 loops. So it is a double crochet, but what we're doing is we're working around the post of the previous row. So once we work further rows, you will see the effect. So what we're going for is that ripple effect, or that ridged or ribbed effect, many people will call it. So into the next stitch, we are going to go and do a regular double crochet. So instead of working the post, so this would be the next post, we are going to work the next stitch. So the next post is here, so we'd follow it up, and that's where the next stitch would be. Okay, so you insert into the next stitch and pull through, and we resolve it like a regular double crochet. So essentially what we're doing is we're alternating. Every second stitch we will do a front post double crochet. So that means we're going to double crochet around the post, and that will push it forward slightly. So that's what we're going to do into the next stitch. So we'll yarn over, and instead of going into the stitch, we're going to go into the space to push that post forward and work our double crochet around that post. Now what you want to keep in mind is you don't want to be crocheting too tightly. So if you're a tight crocheter, your work will start to really bunch. So you're going to want to just relax it a little bit, relax your hold. So you can see a wee bit how the ones that are the front post have just been pushed forward a little bit, and the regular double crochet is sitting inward a little bit, so it's creating a bit of a ridge. I'm going to do a couple more. It might be tricky to see still in this first row of doing it, but the more you do it, the more you will see the effect. So the next stitch, the next post is here, but I'm working into the stitch, so we'll always work into the top there. So it's a double crochet into the stitch, and then the next double crochet will be into the post. Be careful not to go back into the post of this one because we've just worked the top of the stitch. We actually want to go into the next post. Okay, so a good way to look at it is check your posts, so to speak. So the next post would be right here, and because we've just worked this post, we're going to follow it up and insert into the stitch. Whoops, I didn't yarn over. So I'm going to go into the stitch. So then the next one would be around the post. So you see, we've just worked the top of this post, so we want to go into the next post. Whoops, I just did that again. I'm so worried about making sure you all know where your post is. So remember, I just worked the top of this one, so I want to get the post of this one. And this is basically the repeat. You do a regular double crochet and a front post, a regular and a front post. So the next one's going to be a regular one into the stitch. And the next one is going to be around the post. And that's it. That's what you're going to do all the way around. And as we're coming up to the end of row 2, you should be finishing with a front post double crochet. So we started off the row, or round I should say. Remember we did that chain 1 and double crochet? That would be considered like a regular double crochet, and then we went right away into a front post. So it should equal nice and even. Every other stitch is a front post stitch, and every one in between that is a regular stitch. So you can kind of see what's happening here. It's creating this little ribbed effect, which is perfect for creating that tube top look. Okay, so now it's going to be super easy from here on out. So it's been fairly easy so far, but it's going to be super, super easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the top of that. Remember, we only chained one and we did a double crochet, and that makes it really easy to find the top of that stitch. You're just going to slip stitch to close off the round. It's a little bit tight here. Okay, so you've closed off round 2, and now it's going to be super easy. So from here on out, every time you start a new round, you'll chain 1, and then you will do a double crochet right back into the base of that same stitch. And I keep it a little bit relaxed. See how I kept that chain 1 relaxed? Because I want my double crochet to be a good height. And now all you're going to do is you're going to repeat whatever is in the previous row. So the first one was a regular. The next one I can see was a front post double crochet. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a front post double crochet on top of a front post double crochet. So now it's going to be extra easy to see where to go. The next one is a regular double crochet, so I'm just going to go into the top of that stitch. Easy peasy. The next one, so I just worked into the top of this stitch. Now this one is a front post, so that one is going to get a front post double crochet. And this is the repeat. Regular over a regular double crochet, front post into a front post. And you are going to continue doing this. So now you can really see, as we've done, now we're showing you a second row with the front post. Now you can certainly see the ribbing effect coming through. So you're going to do this now for round and round and round until you get the a length of your top that you would like. So because I want to use this as a tube top / bandeau top, I'm most likely going to stop just about my belly button or just below my belly button because for me, most of the time I'm going to wear this under other garments. For those of you that want to wear it as a crop top and feel really cool and confident to do so, I say go for it. I, on the other hand, do not have that kind of confidence anymore, so I will not be wearing it as a crop top. I will be using it as more of an undergarment, maybe under other like loose, really large off-the-shoulder tops or loose tank tops or rompers, things like that. That's what I'm going to wear mine with. But as always, you can wear yours how you like. Okay, guys? So go ahead and do that so you can really see now the ribbing is coming through. And I will meet you once you've got the length of the garment that you want, and then we'll talk about doing the bottom trim as well as the top. Okay, so I am pretty much happy with the depth of my tube top. And so it's looking something like this. Now you'll probably notice that as you've gone along, your work has actually curled quite a bit, and that is normal. It's just the ribbing effect that's causing the yarn to curl, but that we're going to fix that very, very shortly. So I just wanted to stretch it out here so that you could see that mine in particular, the width we have here is approximately 18 inches. Okay, and then my length, or the depth, so far is 8 inches. Okay, so you can make yours a bit longer if you'd like. I have a romper that I want to wear this with, so pretty much I am designing this to wear under that. Otherwise, for me, this would definitely be too short of a top. Or you can use this as beach wear too. In any case, this is pretty much the finished piece so far. I am down to the wire with my yarn. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to do a couple of finishing rows, which should help rectify this curling situation. Okay guys, so I've just slip stitched the last row that I'm going to do of all of my front post crochets, front post double crochets I should say, and you can see it just creates this really cool ribbed effect. So what I want to do now is I want to just straighten out my edges a bit, and we're simply going to do a row of single crochets. So I'm going to chain one, and then I'm going to go back into this same stitch, and I'm just going to do a single crochet. And I like to do that for single crochets going back into the same stitch just because I find it makes it a little easier for me to find the original stitch. And so that's what we're going to do for this whole row. You're just going to go into each and every single stitch, and you're just simply going to place a single crochet stitch. And this should start helping all of the stitches, it should start helping all of the work start to lie a little bit flatter, because right now with some of the front post stitches, the work is curling quite a bit. But you can already see as I'm doing a few of these single crochets that the edge is already flattening out a little bit. Okay, so that's what you're going to do all the way around, and you'll slip stitch at the end, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I have come to the end of my row of single crochets, and whoops, I just have to close off the round with a slip stitch here. So I'm just going to go into this very next one here to finish one last one single crochet. And now right here at the top, I'm just going to slip stitch to join. So it just kind of starts to finish off the ridging effect. Now what we want to do is incorporate our fabric elastic here. So I'm just going to set this aside for a second, because what I've done is I've taken the measurement around the bodice or the bust area. So whatever what you want to do is put it around the person you're making it for, or even just trace this or go along the length or the perimeter around your top here. Can't speak today for some reason. And what you want to do is you don't want to stretch it when you do that. You just want to go all the way around and keep it nice and relaxed. And wherever you see that it joins without stretching it, then what I would do is go about 1 inch or even 1.5 inches less than that length. Because then once you sew it together and you put it on, then you'll have that stretch you need. It's just enough so that it will sit a little bit more snugly on your body. So that is what I've done. So I've cut my length. So for me, that's about 33 inches. And what I'm going to do now is, before I start working it into my top here, I want to just sew these two ends together here. So I've just taken a bit of regular thread here, and I've got a much smaller darning needle here for typical thread that you would use for sewing projects. What I want to do is I just want to sew these two ends together so they'll stay nice and secure once I incorporate them into my crochet work. So I'm just going to take this needle here and just ever so gently poke it through here, trying not to poke myself at the same time. And I'm just going to go back and forth. I'll probably tie a knot here as well. So this can be, it's probably best to use a thimble here so you don't prick yourself a lot. But so I'm just going to go back and forth here, probably knot it inside and out. And I'm going to do this several times until I feel that I can pull this and it's not going to come apart. See that? It's not, definitely not secure yet. So that is what we want to do before we start working this into our crochet project. And don't worry if it starts getting a bit tangled here, like this thread is getting all, because remember, this is going to be on the inside of our project, so no one's going to see it. You just want to make sure that your knots don't become bulky so that it protrudes. But other than that, we don't have to worry too much about keeping it looking pretty. Okay, so I am pretty happy with how tight this is. So I'm just going to snip off my thread here and just pulling on that. I am very happy with how secure that is. Now you can see, hopefully, that it's not all that pretty, but we are not worrying about it because no one is going to see that. So, oh yeah, and definitely make sure that your work isn't twisted before you do that. I did forget to mention that. So we don't want to have it twisted. We want it to be nice and smooth. So now we're going to bring our crochet project back. We're just about there, guys. We're almost there. So we're going to continue doing a row of single crochets, but we now want to incorporate our elastic into that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hold it up against our work here. And so we are working with the right side facing outward. And we're just going to nestle our elastic anywhere behind our stitch. So we want to make sure that our working yarn is behind there. So I'm going to chain one, actually. Let me just do that before there we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into that same stitch. I'm going to yarn over, pull through, and then I'm going to yarn over. See how I've captured that? See how I've trapped the elastic in there? Now I'm going to resolve my single crochet and my elastic is in there. So I'm going to do that again with the elastic held against and just above my work. I'm going to go into the next stitch. I'm going to insert and pull through. So see how that's now, the yarn is behind it. It's kind of trapping the elastic in there. And then I yarn over and I pull through all two to resolve the single crochet. Now you're going to notice that we're going to have to pull the loops up a little bit just because this particular elastic has a little bit of a slightly higher depth than our usual crochet stitch, single crochet. Now, could you have gotten a much thinner fabric elastic at the store? Absolutely. But this, I've got tons of this left over from other projects, and this is not that thick, and I actually prefer this thickness, so that's why I'm using this thickness here. So I'm going to do a few more. We're going to go into the very next stitch. So just so you can see, we've already worked into this one. We're going to go into the one next to it, and we're going to insert our hook. Whoops. And we're going to yarn over. So you can see that we're trapping that elastic in there when we do that. And we're going to gently pull up a bit so that it sits a little bit relaxed. We'll yarn over and resolve the single crochet. So there we can see that our elastic is being trapped inside that stitch. Now what I want to do is, just to kind of give it a bit more coverage, is I'm going to do another stitch going into the same stitch. I'm going to do another single crochet so you can see it's being trapped in there. I'm going to pull it up gently and resolve the single crochet. So it's just going to give me a little bit more coverage on that elastic, and once we put it on and the elastic stretches, we just want to have a little bit more give here. So I'm going to do that again into the very next stitch. I'm going to insert, and you can see by placing our elastic there, it already automatically gets trapped in there by the yarn. I pull through and gently bring it up to the height of the elastic. And of course you can get elastics that are much thinner than this, but I had tons of this left over and I prefer this width actually. Okay, now we're going to go back into the same stitch and we're going to do that again. So insert, yarn over, pull up gently, not too much but not too tight, and then resolve it. Okay, so what we're doing is we're actually doing 2 single crochets into every single stitch. This will trap this in here into our project. I do realize that by doing 2 single crochets into every single stitch, we are going to double our stitch count. That is not going to be an issue, okay? Because again, this is going to start to bunch in because of the elastic, and those extra stitches will just allow for a bit more coverage around our elastic, okay? So for now, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do it again. Into the very next stitch, we're going to yarn over to pull through. We just want to pull it up just enough to the height of your elastic width. Yarn over and pull through 2. Back into that same stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, so, and I'll do it one more time. Insert, pull through, yarn over, resolve the single crochet, and we're going to do another one into that same stitch. So you can see it just gives it a wee bit more coverage, and that is what we're going to do all the way around until you should end up coming back, whoops, so that your elastic will end up being covered and you'll be ready to slip stitch to join at the end. So you know what to do, 2 single crochets in every stitch, and I'll see you shortly. Okay, so once you have gone all the way around, your work will look something like this. So you can see that the elastic is nestled nicely inside those single crochet stitches, and I just slip stitched to join when I was done, and I wove in my end, and there you have it. So you can also see that it will move through and around, or the elastic will move through and around your work. So this is going to be the top of my tube top here. So remember that beginning edge that we created when we first started the top with our chain loops? So I've put that to the bottom. And now you can actually elasticize the top as well as the bottom. And originally I was going to do that, but I've decided I'm just going to let it sit on its own, because that way it'll drape nicely and I won't have it kind of clinging to me. So that's my preference, but you can certainly go and do 1 round of single crochets all the way around and then add the elastic just like we did at the top. All I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add a row of single crochets just to help it sit a little bit flatter. See how it's curling up there? And that's because of the ribbing there. So that's what I'm going to do here. And in fact, I'm going to find where I had the original tail. Now I have, luckily for me, the yarn that I had left took me right, there you go, you can see where I slip stitched there. It took me right to the very end. Now, full disclosure, I had to do some of these stitches, so here you can see most of these initial stitches had 2 single crochets in each one. As I went along, I had to start alternating. So some of the stitches have 2, some of the stitches have 1 single crochet. So here you can see it spreading out a little bit. And not a big deal because the elastic moves within it, but that's what helped me have just enough yarn to get to the end of my project. So I'm very happy that I didn't have any yarn left over, but in order to finish this row, I just need a little bit more. So I had some of this leftover yarn from another project. It's still considered a fine weight yarn, but it is definitely a wee bit thicker than the one I've been using. So I'm just going to use this as an edging, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm still going to use my same hook, and I'm going to start off with a slip knot, and there we go, my tail's here. So what I want to do is I do want to create a little bit of an inward cinch. So when I started this, we were putting 4 double crochets into these chain loops here. I'm going to do 3, and that'll just kind of help me bring in the work a little bit. So I'm just going to insert my hook here, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. There we go. And I'm only going to chain 1. And then I'm going to go back into that space, and I'm going to single crochet. I'm going to try and work over that tail and this tail next to it. So I'm going to put 3 single crochets in each one. So that was 1, 2, and 3. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to find my next chain loop space. And actually this is, oh, I know what this was. This was the seam here. So I'm going to put 1 single crochet into there just to get me over. And again, when it comes to things like this, it's not a perfect science, but this is just an edging, so it's not going to be a big deal. So don't panic if sometimes you come up and things don't look perfect. That is part of the art. So now we're going to go into the next loop, and we'll do 3 single crochets into that space there. 1. I'm going to try and work over that tail. Here's 2, and here is, whoops, 3. Whoa. Okay, so you're just creating this really pretty little ridge here, just using single crochet stitches. And then I go into the next chain loop, I insert and just do another 3 single crochets again. And this is what I'm going to do all the way around. Okay, so guys, actually that's going to come out really pretty. So I'm going to leave you there, and go ahead and do this all the way around. And for me, that will absolutely finish my top. And voila, your beach bandeau is complete. And here's Miss Jasmine showing off the top. I hope you guys have enjoyed working on this month's project. And if you've missed any of our previous Life's a Beach segments, check out the playlist that we're going to leave down below for you. And I think you'll find something else that you might enjoy working on. Now, if you have any questions, as always, you know you can reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. That's a link to our website as well, which is crochetcrafty.com. If it's easier, you can just leave me a comment in the comment box down below, and come and say hi. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at The Stitch Sessions. And don't forget, press that subscribe button. Come hang out with me every week. Make sure to press that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video, which is every Wednesday morning. And if you find these tutorials helpful, please do share them with anyone else you feel may enjoy them. They're absolutely free. And if you really like them, then go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And as always, that helps me know that I'm on the right track with the types of projects that you guys like to see and like to work on. All right, everyone, enjoy your day. Happy crocheting. Take good care of yourselves. And I will see you in the next session.